Hi everyone, I'm Jasmine Bergman. In this tutorial, I'm going to teach you step by step how to make this work of art, which is a coffee table with an ocean beach. Just before I start the tutorial, I want to tell you about a promotion I decided to do to promote my channel. I am willing to give away one of my original acrylic on canvas paintings when I reach 10K followers. To participate in the raffle, all you have to do is to like this video and subscribe to my channel. To promote the raffle, you should share this video. More details about it in a separate video, coming soon. In the first step, I coat the bottom of the table with art resin epoxy. I choose nicer side of the wood, because the other side of it will be completely covered. It's very important to buy only an art resin epoxy that doesn't yellow. It's more expensive, but I don't want my creation to yellow over time, so it's not worth saving on the quality of the art resin epoxy. Before I apply the epoxy layer, I apply masking tape on the edges of the other side because when the drippings dry, they solidify and turn into hard lumps. This saves me hard work in the next steps. I blend 50% of resin with 50% of harder. I prepare a damp cloth in advance to immediately clean my mixer before the epoxy dries on it and ruins it. This mixer connects to any household drill. This saves a lot of time and effort when mixing. It is a good idea to use a thin disposable plastic cup because it is easy to squeeze out all the material that remains in the cup, and I don't need to clean it, of course. Then I place small cups to allow the material to flow around without it sticking to the work surface. There are also professional lifts, but as long as the piece is not too heavy, this is not necessary. I check with a spirit level if my surface is straight. On the low side, I put a cup inside a cup to raise my palette. My hands are the best brush because I can feel exactly where the surface is dry or rough. I also apply the epoxy to the edges of the wood on the sides to prevent bubbles coming out of the wood due to absorption of the material. Later you will understand why this is so important. It is a good idea to repeat this step twice because the wood drinks the material. Between steps, I give about 24 hours of drying. I let it dry for about 24 hours. After a day of drying, I apply another layer. This is what the wood looks like after the first coat. I clean my measuring cups with different wooden sticks so that the ingredients don't merge and harden on the measuring cup. This allows me to clean the cups later, but it's better to use disposable cups. This is what the wood looks like after applying the second coat. After about 24 hours of drying, I don't remove the masking tape at this stage and add masking tape to the edges of the top surface of the other side as well. First, I make sure my mold is free of dust. It's a good idea to wipe it with a dry, lint-free kitchen towel. I saw that my mold was also dirty with epoxy residue from the previous piece, so I took it to the shower and cleaned it thoroughly there. Of course, I also wiped it down afterwards. This is a silicone mold with a diameter of 60 centimeters and a height of 6 centimeters. I placed the bottom of the table, which I had already coated with epoxy, face down in the center of the silicone mold. The diameter of the wooden plate is about 58 centimeters. This means that I have about 1 centimeter of thickness all around for pouring the epoxy. Now I place weights so that my plate doesn't float above the epoxy. It seems like the wooden plate is so big that there's no way it will float, but I've learned from experience that even a large plate can float while I'm pouring the epoxy around it. I place 40 kilograms of weights. I don't think that much weight is needed, but since I already have weights, I don't care. I covered the weights with plastic wrap in case epoxy drips on them. Now I fill the space around it with tiny shells. If I see shells that are more beautiful than others, I place them in the front. Next, I start pouring the epoxy around them. This creates a decorative edge for the table, so that it is beautiful not only from the top but also from the side. Since I don't know in advance how much epoxy I need, I decided to do it in stages. In any case, the shells are hollow and it takes time for the epoxy to fill the spaces and sink down. In the end, I repeated this procedure, I believe, about 5 times. When I see that the epoxy has reached the line of the plate, I align the top line again. I remove the bubbles that have risen with a burner. A few bubbles will probably remain, but it adds a touch of the sea to the decoration, so I don't remove all the bubbles completely. If I hadn't coated the edges of the wood with epoxy in the previous step, the wood would drink the epoxy and the bubbles wouldn't stop coming up for a long time. You could say that to create a table like this, you have to be an extremely patient person. After the top line is aligned, I let this step dry for about 24 hours. We've reached the 4th day of creating the table. Now I take the glass, which is the top surface of the table. I attach the connectors to the glass. The glass is 60 centimeters in diameter, which is the diameter of my mold. I give each connector a number so that I can return the glass to its correct position after making the beach and ocean, in case the glazier didn't drill the holes exactly the same distance apart. Gluing the connectors to the wooden surface when they are attached to the glass helps me maintain the exact position of the connectors. Now I remove the masking tape with the leftover epoxy that leaked in the first step. I apply another layer of epoxy around it to seal the gaps that weren't filled, and a layer of epoxy to the entire top surface. Not only in order to glue the glass connectors to the wood surface, but also because the wood tends to soak up the material, and I don't want any bubbles in the epoxy when I get to the ocean layer. I want the ocean to be smooth and clear with no bubbles at all. Before I put my glass in, I have to clean the top of the mold of any epoxy residue so that the glass doesn't get dirty. Then I attach the glass to the connectors and let it dry for about 24 hours. We've reached step 5. In this step, I blend epoxy with natural sea sand. This is going to be the first layer of the beach. The first wave of the sea will cover this layer. I glue some nice rocks that I collected at the beach to my beach. I let this layer dry for about 24 hours. Step 6 is the second layer of the beach. I blend a lot of sea sand with the epoxy to give the beach a natural look. This layer starts where the first wave will land. I create a first line that looks like wet sand. Since the epoxy is glossy, this line of the beach will look like wet sand. Now I add acrylic paint in the shade of dry sand. To make my sand look matte and dry, I need to add a lot of paint. This makes the epoxy very thick and sticky and difficult to apply. But this difficulty pays off because in the end, I get the look of a natural dry beach. Now comes the fun part of the work. I arrange the composition of the shells, seashells, starfish, pearls, and crystals on the beach. It is very important to pay attention that the elements do not exceed the height of the glass connectors. I like the beach to be exciting and interesting and not boring. In the end, this is going to be a piece of furniture that is a spectacular work of art that makes the space, room, or clinic a much more impressive place. It is a dominant piece of furniture that cannot be ignored. There is no one who comes into my house and sees the table and does not say, "Wow." After I had turned off the camera, I added some more small crystals and shells. I let this stage dry for another day. The 7th stage in creating the table is the first layer of the ocean with the first wave. Before I pour the epoxy, I paint the wooden palette with acrylic paint because the epoxy is clear and I don't want the wood to be seen. I leave 1 cup of clear epoxy, 1 cup of epoxy mixed with white pigment, 1 cup of epoxy mixed with light turquoise pigment, and another cup of epoxy mixed with blue pigment. I pour the clear epoxy on top of the sand because I want to see the sand under the first wave, then the light turquoise epoxy, and finally the blue epoxy. Now I create a line of white epoxy. Using a heat gun, I blow on the white epoxy to create a shape of a wave's texture. I made this turtle by pouring epoxy into a silicone mold and painting it with acrylic paint. I cover it with clear epoxy so it looks wet. I add a few more small crystals and small shells. It is very important to cover the piece at this stage so that mosquitoes or dust particles do not stick. I let this stage dry for about 24 more hours. We have reached the 8th stage. I create the second wave at this stage. This stage is similar to the previous stage. I prepare a white shade, a turquoise shade to which I add glitter powder, a deep blue shade, and leave some transparent. I apply the transparent from the end of the sands line, where the second wave will begin. I apply the epoxy and blend the shades. Now I add the white line and blow on it with a heat gun. At this stage, I add the boat so that it is slightly submerged in the ocean under the third wave. Since the masking tape has warped from the heat, I stretch it back up. Look at what a beautiful wave it is and how much the glitter adds to the natural look of a real sea. I cover the piece and let this stage dry for about 24 hours. I have reached the 9th stage, the third wave. Since the masking tape warps with the heat, I thought of a good idea on how to make it stay upright. I cut the masking tape from the casting line and now I stick new masking tape that will be higher and fix it with clothespins. You're probably asking yourself why I need to put masking tape since I have a mold. Well, even though I have a mold, the epoxy flows on the sides and I don't want the blue epoxy to cover the edges with the shells, and then I will have to sand it and the edges of the shells will be sanded as well. It won't be pretty if they are not complete at the edges. That's why I want a minimum of sanding. At this stage, I prepare a larger amount of epoxy because I want to completely cover the shells at the edges, which, even though I straightened them, floated a little up. I decided to add glitter to the white paint to emphasize it more. Now the process is exactly the same as in the previous wave. I add another white line above the previous wave to make it sharper and more prominent and bolder to get a 3D effect. Another important tip: since it's cold today and I turned on the air conditioner on the heating, I noticed that it affects the direction of the wave. Although it's beautiful to me and I don't mind it, but take this into account before you turn on the air conditioner. And of course, you need to cover the creation to maintain maximum shine and to prevent dust or mosquitoes from sticking to the ocean, and let your creation dry for about 24 hours. The 10th step: after removing the casting from the mold and after removing the masking tape, it is necessary to sand the edges so that they are rounded and beautiful. After sanding, I want to give a final transparent layer so that everything is smooth and shiny after sanding. I stick masking tape on the bottom so that the drips don't build stalactites below. A final transparent layer and another drying time of about 24 hours. The final step. Now I remove the masking tape from the glass connectors. I have the numbers underneath which I wrote down at the beginning. I attach the glass to its place. Now I place soft towels on my work surface so that the glass does not get streaked. Now I remove the masking tape with the drip icicles and attach the glass and its legs to the table. I want the legs to be under the glass connectors, so I mark the location of the connectors. And here is the amazingly stunning and beautiful table ready. I hope you love it as much as I do. Tell me what you think of it in the comments. If you are interested in buying this table, you can contact me by email in the description. I would really appreciate it if you like and follow and share the video. Thanks for watching. See you in my next video.